Hello, Christopher Yates here from CitizenGO Australia. You're probably aware that we have a campaign at the moment in support of a bill that's before the New South Wales Parliament. Now, this bill is pretty straightforward. It's about parental rights over their children at school. At the moment in New South Wales, a child could, when they go to school, be called by a different name, wear a different uniform, essentially socially transition genders, and at the moment there's no obligation on the school to tell the parents anything about that. It could be done without their knowledge. Also, there's nothing obstructing teenage boys from competing with girls in sports in schools. Well, most people think this is pretty unreasonable, and that although teachers have a role in the absence of parents to care for their children, they don't replace them as parents. Well, we're very fortunate in New South Wales, and a member of the upper house of the Parliament here, Mark Latham, has drafted a bill that would seek to correct that. Now, he's done this before, and the last coalition government allowed that bill to lapse before the last election, and it looks like the current Labour government are going to do likewise. Well, I'm very fortunate to have been able to interview Mark in his office in the Parliament, and what you're going to see will help explain the background of the bill, what the obstacles are, and why it's so important for our campaign and for you to put pressure on politicians to at least answer honestly whether they support parents' rights or not. But without further ado, I'll let Mark explain his bill in his own words.
So we're here in New South Wales Parliament House with Member of the Legislative Council, Mark Latham, whose bill we are supporting. So good afternoon, Mark. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on your platform.
Thanks for doing what you do. So look, could you tell us a bit about the bill the private member's bill that you've got, perhaps the history of it and what it's there designed to do?
Well, it's a bill to entrench parental rights into the Education Act and the education system, because a lot of parents complain that they haven't got a big enough say about the material that's being taught to their children. They worry that a 13-year-old girl can come home and say today's English class was gender studies. They worry when a 10-year-old boy comes back from school and says they talked about gender fluidity today. Mum, can I really be a girl? They worry about woke content in the classroom, eating up all the valuable time that should be used for the basics, literacy and numeracy. So the bill is there to ensure that parents have got rights written in law, rights that are practiced in schools, and rights that are exercised to the point where at the beginning of every school year there'd be a briefing on what's going to be taught in the classroom. So no surprises policy. And we do have this problem in New South Wales right through the term of the Minns government. The proportional share of government school enrolments is dropping. So parents feel like they've got schools with substandard teaching, behavioural standards are not good enough, and they haven't got a big enough say. So what I say to the Labor government and the Liberal Party is, if you want to build public confidence in public schools, you've got to entrench parental rights and make them a regular part of the system, rather than something that's optional, or even school principals who are hostile to parental rights. My kids first left the government system when we got a new principal out in southwest Sydney, only a small school, who said, I don't really want parents here between 9 and 3. Your job's to drop them off, pick them up, we'll do the rest. Some parents don't mind that, but most parents who love their children, dedicated to their education, want to make sure that they're comfortable with what's being taught. It's not political content. If teachers want to practice politics in the classroom, run for elections, don't take it out on the kids. And the other big thing is to ban the teaching of gender fluidity, which has been a real problem. I think it's subsiding somewhat, but my bill was first moved in the last parliamentary term. It couldn't be progressed because Labor and Liberal wouldn't support it. Gender fluidity was probably a bigger thing then, but it's still around. It's still an issue. Protection of girls in sport is a big issue, for example. We shouldn't have boys playing against girls in contact sports.
So is that included in the bill?
Yeah, it's part of it. And overall, it's a bill designed to protect the rights of parents and restore confidence in the public education system, which is badly needed. Unfortunately, in the politics of it, there was some hope that the Liberals might be able to support it, but they had a shadow cabinet meeting, and Mark Speakman, who's very woke, their former leader, is the education shadow, And he said the bill's not needed, they're not going to support it, and the woke Liberals, again, decided they wouldn't support such a measure. So I can bring it in, we can make speeches about it, but we're not going to have the numbers to do it, which is a terrible shame in New South Wales, because it means parents will be disenfranchised, parents will be disrespected in the education system, and parents will continue, even in the middle of a cost of living crisis, to pay their money to go to non-government schools.
I mean, I was surprised. I mean, my children are long out of the education system now, but I've been surprised when I moved back to Sydney how many public schools have got trans flags flying on the flagpole outside the school. They don't seem to be joining that up with how many parents, many of whom are Muslim, are opting to send their children to Christian schools as an alternative to that, because they think that maybe they won't get so much woke indoctrination. And do you think this could be a real problem for the state?
Well, it is. And why should sexuality be a mainstream concern of a school when we have 30% of students who aren't up to a decent literacy standard? Schools are there for the basics, for genuine education and instruction, good behavioural standards, good values. And it's on the values side, I think you'd find most parents leave to go to non-government schools looking for something that's a bit more regular, a bit more mainstream. So trans flags, gay flags, identity politics in schools, you know, when people leave school and they're voting age and they want to practice all that, they can do it every moment of the day, as far as I'm concerned. But the school core function can't be overwhelmed by politics. And we've got way too much politics in our schools, and a lot of parents don't like it, and my bill's designed to give those parents the right to push back against it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the beneficiary of a classical education, and you know, it was always believed that parents were in loco parentis, to use the Latin term, which means in the place of parents. That was only ever understood to mean that they were there to make sure their children didn't get hurt and damaged while the parents weren't there.
Yeah.
Do you think that many teachers or perhaps education bureaucrats think that they're the real parents of the children and the parents ought to back off?
Well, it's an amazing tendency that, a lot of these teachers in the age of educational politics think that it's their job to indoctrinate students with values and politics that could conflict with what's being practiced in the home. And it's an amazing tendency, it's an arrogance that I don't like. It's counterproductive, it drives down government school enrolments, it takes the focus off real education and academic results. And at the end of the day, what are we talking about? There's a lot of good teachers out there. I've got friends that are teachers from when my kids went to school years ago, and we stay in regular contact. But at the end of the day, your average teacher is essentially a stranger in our lives. They could leave the school at the end of the year and you won't see them again. Sure, they did a good job, well, it might have done a poor job, but anyway, they move around, and they are essentially strangers in our life in 95% of cases. Whereas the parents are permanent. You know, whatever's happening with the kids in terms of values, politics, all these different programs that are run in schools that are not core education, the parents are there 24/7 to pick up the pieces. And I've seen some horror cases on gender fluidity where the school encouraged this tendency, this transition to a different gender. It caused no end of problems, mental health problems for the child. The teachers move on, or the kid leaves the school, and the parents have got to pick up the consequences. So you can't avoid the basic fact that the main source of love, instruction, care and devotion to children in a good family is always the parents. You're never going to change that. For teachers to think there's some sort of parental substitute is a massive act of delusion.
Do you think there's also the urban problem? Like, you know, I dare say that this is a more significant issue in Sydney, in the fashionable areas of Sydney, than it is in Lightning Ridge or in the rural regional areas of New South Wales.
You'd be surprised. I've certainly heard of massive problems in the Hunter Valley, around Newcastle, some of them down the south coast. I wouldn't say it's just the Sydney problem, and Sydney's different, the eastern suburbs, North Shore, Western Sydney. I would have thought right across the education system we've got this particular problem. I wouldn't discriminate on basis of geography, although the further west you go, obviously you get into Indigenous schools, they've got a whole different basket of problems to be solved.
I mean, fortunately,
but I wouldn't just think of it as an urban issue. It's around in a lot of schools you wouldn't expect.
Mm-hmm. Well, fortunately, CitizenGO we're based across the whole of Australia, and certainly our petitions, which bring awareness of things like your bill to people outside of the political bubble, people who are largely disengaged with the political process, by which I mean they despair with it. Well, we put a petition together about your bill, and within a week we had 5,000 signatures.
Wow, that's great.
And so, although I understand the frustration you have that within this house, and only within this house, it's very, very difficult to get movement on this issue. But it doesn't take much for politicians to get influenced by a significant core group of people who've had enough. And
We've got
that's
an
our
election in
people.
March. So if you can help make it an election issue and flush these candidates and sitting members out on where they stand on this particular issue, it almost sounds like a motherhood concept. Are you against parents having rights for the education of their children? I find it a no-brainer. It's obvious, but for the woke brigade, Greens, Labor, and the left wing of the Liberal Party, it seems to be anathema. So to make it and help it become an election issue is fantastic. If CitizenGO can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I said in our petition, this is not a right or left issue. This is about parents' rights. Now, you know, CitizenGO primarily stands for life, family, and liberty. And we would have thought, perhaps naively, that the Liberal Party in New South Wales, in Australia, was the party that was more likely to be aligned with our values, with placing the family first. And this is very much about family and education. Why is it you think the Liberal Party have moved away from these issues?
Well, that's a difficult question. Not a Liberal Party member, never have been, never will be. But I think they don't rely now on bringing into Parliament people with a business background, with a lot of life experience. They've got apparatchiks, lobbyists, factional organisers who just go with the fashion. They haven't got deep-seated beliefs and values. They just go with the fashion of the day, which has been woke, particularly in this building. And unfortunately, it's causing them no end of trouble, and it's the worst way of responding to the rise of one nation. So that's all I can say as an observation. They've got the wrong people with the wrong values, the wrong policies, and they may find out they're going to have the wrong number of seats after the next election.
Well, Mark, I can hear the bells are going for division. Yeah. We're just thankful that you're here in the upper house, and other independents or minor parties like John Ruddock, who we've also supported.
Yes, fantastic.
We're very glad that you're here.
Job.
And it shows that the people of New South Wales do in fact want to elect people that have got an opinion.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. You're going to support John and his candidates. I'm not running at the next election, but the Libertarians are, the Shooters, you know, people who support mainstream values are needed in our politics now more than ever. So I've got to go vote.
Thanks, Mark.
I thank you for your time and support. It's tremendous. I wish this support was in the Parliament with votes, but maybe one day.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay, thanks, mate.